And at the time, neither American nor Russian government officials seemed very concerned about the possible consequences. Today, Russian and American scientists, at least, are very worried. ABC's Karen Burns reports from Moscow.
It was the kind of accident naval commanders dread, a fire on board a nuclear submarine. It sank in the rough waters off the coast of Norway 3.5 years ago. This past May, the lives of the 42 men who died were commemorated. The Komsomolets was the Soviet Union's most sophisticated submarine. Now, as this video obtained by ABC News shows, it sits on a ledge 6,000 feet below the surface. Yet even here, it remains a potential threat. The Komsomolets has 2 nuclear torpedoes loaded with plutonium on board and a nuclear reactor with fuel rods still full of radioactive material. Admiral Vladimir Samoylov was a senior commander of the Russian Navy.
It's one of the most painful subjects that we have, and with the Komsomolets' death, all of our problems have been opened.
Since the accident, there have been 3 Russian expeditions to inspect the Komsomolets, which sustained major damage when it hit the ocean floor. Scientists are deeply concerned about what they've now discovered. Clear evidence that the submarine is leaking radioactive elements. Submarine designer Nikolai Nosov led the expedition.
We can definitely identify cesium-137, and we can definitely say this one came from the submarine.
Cesium-137, detected by the Russian testing devices, is a radioactive carcinogenic substance that accumulates in animal and human tissue. But even more troubling to Nosov and others is the imminent risk that plutonium, a highly toxic radioactive substance, will leak from the damaged torpedo bays and will find its way into the food chain. Plutonium remains dangerous for 24,000 years. When do you anticipate that plutonium will begin to come out?
We predict that in 1994 or 1995.
That soon? These pictures perhaps illustrate the scientists' greatest fears. The outer door of the torpedo bay is open. The inner door to the tube containing radioactive material has cracked. The white substance around the rim of the inner door shows that the door itself is disintegrating. Captain Tengiz Borisov is an engineer for the Russian Navy.
Next year will be our last chance, and then it will be catastrophic. Plutonium will hit the water, and it will be over. Then the entire region will be polluted, and the food chain affected. The microorganisms eaten by the fish are tainted, and the effects will end up on the consumer's table.
The Komsomolets sank near one of the world's most productive and profitable fishing grounds. Much of the fish from this area is exported all over the world, including the United States. Russian scientists and submarine designers invited American scientists to Russia to review their data. Dr. Charles Hollister from the Woods Hole Institute is a specialist in ocean currents and movement of mud, critical since plutonium attaches to mud and can travel great distances with the ocean currents.
The currents they've measured near the sea bottom, near the Komsomolets submarine, reach 152 centimeters per second. Now, that's about 3 knots, and that's a very fast current.
The Komsomolets is only one example of the legacy of the Cold War. In the course of the struggle between the 2 superpowers, the Russians now admit that 4 of their nuclear submarines have sunk. The Americans concede they've lost 2. Russian and American scientists have agreed to work together to decide whether to seal off the Komsomolets to recover only the warheads or the whole submarine, which could cost $2 billion. Neither government has decided to make the effort, even though scientists on both sides agree that speed and cooperation are essential in dealing with all the subs, because each nuclear warhead, and there are 50 on the ocean floor, could release radiation 100 times as dangerous as Chernobyl. Karen Burns, ABC News, Moscow.